Today we have a 1994 Honda Civic. This car has a leaking valve cover gasket. So we're going to go ahead and replace the valve cover gasket on this car and show you how to do that. On this engine, this is a 1.6 liter engine, and they all look very similar, even the 1.5 liters. This engine, this is the valve cover, and the gasket down here was seeping oil badly all the way around. The customer just had the steam clean, so you can't see it as well. But if you see a lot of oil buildup around where the valve cover and the cylinder head meet, then most likely you have a slow seeping oil leak. The other thing that happens with these is the oil seeps down onto the exhaust manifold and it smells like burning oil. So if you have a lot of smell coming out of the engine, it smells like a burning oil kind of smell, take a look and see if your oil is leaking down on your exhaust, because that will burn and have a fairly good odor to it. So to start, the plug wires go right over top the valve cover and go through the valve cover, and there's some little O-ring seals in here that seal the oil from getting into the spark plug, so you don't have oil where the spark plug is. And if those seals leak, you can pull these out and you'll see oil down in the holes there, or down at the bottom of the boot you'll see oil. So that's another reason to replace this valve cover. These wires are actually original. They're very old. They're brittle. They got some little tiny dry rotting going on, so we're going to go ahead and replace these also. A lot of times you can tell if they're new because they have a date right on them. This says number 1 Sumitomo in 1993. So this is 15 years old roughly. So it's time to replace those. So we're going to go ahead and start doing that. First thing we do is get these wires out of the way, so we're going to pull those out. Nice thing about these wires is it's a 4-cylinder. They go right in a row. They're the proper length so that they can't, you basically can't put them in the wrong way. You still want to watch and be careful, but it's pretty difficult to get this in the wrong way. Then we're going to need to just hang these off to the side for now. And now we're going to proceed with removing the valve cover. First we have this little spring-loaded clip here. This is a little teeny rubber vacuum line. Now this is probably also original. You want to be careful pulling this off because it'll probably break if you pull it too hard. You want to be real soft and gentle. You can take a screwdriver and work it around to break the rubber off of it. You'll feel it once it starts to loosen up, and you just need to pull it right off. Move it out to the side. If you see any holes or anything, or if that rubber hose fails, you'll want to replace that. That can cause a vacuum leak and cause it to run bad. So now we got that off. Basically all we got is these bolts that hold the cover on. This is the oil cap. You don't really have to take that off, that can stay on. And we're going to go ahead and pull these bolts out of here. Once you have those off, it may not come right off because it's actually stuck on there. You may have to wiggle it back and forth, pull up on it. This will be a great time for a rubber mallet. You tap it with a rubber mallet and usually it'll break it loose too. Wiggle it a little bit, it'll come off like so. And basically with it flipped over, here's what the valve cover looks like. This is the seal. It's basically a big thick O-ring or rubber gasket that goes in there. This thing just gets hard, it gets brittle, it sucks oil in after a while, and it just can let oil seep out. These are some other seals. These are the spark plug tube seals. They're little rubber seals. They're good to replace also. They help prevent oil getting down into the spark plug tubes. So now we got that off. We're going to go ahead and clean this up, take the gasket off, and proceed with the replacement. Also, you get a good view of the valve train here. You can see this is this has 4 valves per cylinder. It's pretty neat to look at when it's off. 1, 2, 3, 4 per cylinder. So it has 2 intake valves and 2 exhaust valves per cylinder. So that's pretty neat. You don't really want to mess with this unless you know exactly what you're doing. Also, you can look in here, and right there's the timing belt. That's something, especially on these Hondas. Any car, most of the imports especially, they have a timing belt. When you get to the 60,000 mile point or 90,000 mile point, you want to replace that before it breaks. It's a preventative maintenance type deal. If you don't replace that and it breaks on you, you possibly could damage the engine. Not to mention you're stuck on the road, you got to get a tow. It's just so check your owner's manual, see when it says to replace that. Also, age has a lot to do with it. If you don't drive much, it could be 15-20 years before you put 50,000 miles on the car. Well, that's a rubber belt, and rubber over a period of time dries out and can crack and break. So take a good look at that. This cover, you could actually take this off if you wanted. There's a couple more bolts, and this cover comes off, and you can get a good look at that belt. So for now, we're going to take this. We're going to clean it all up real good, put a new gasket in, and then we'll show you how to put this back together. We got the old valve cover all cleaned up. We got all the gaskets pulled out, all the new gaskets installed, all the excess oil wiped off so we don't get any oil between the gasket and the valve cover and the cylinder head. You want to make sure the surfaces are nice and clean. There shouldn't be any oil on there. It's really easy to clean. You don't really need to scrape them or anything. Just make sure they're clean of oil. Also, make sure you remove all the gaskets and O-rings. There's 4 little spark plug tube seals that are pressed into that valve cover, and if you get a little pick or something, you can pull them right out, put the new ones in, and pop them right in. But make sure you replace those, or you do all this job and have to do it over again if they leak. So we got it all ready to go. We're going to pop it back on. These valve covers are usually aluminum, so you want to make sure it's seated down there properly and there's nothing holding it up, because if you go to tighten these bolts down and try to pull the valve cover down to the cylinder head, you could actually crack the valve cover. So make sure there's no restrictions, make sure it's sitting on there properly. You can see it all the way around, make sure the gasket's in there and it's the same little gap, and then you can start snugging these down. These also should be torqued. There's a torque spec for these to make sure that you don't over or under torque them. The torque is 90 foot-pounds. Check your vehicle, make sure it's the same. Snug them all down, recheck, make sure the gap's the same all the way around the valve cover. Once you get them nice and snug, then get your torque wrench, go over them and torque them all to the proper spec. Okay, so we have the valve cover installed. It's all torqued down properly. We checked it. It's nice and even all the way around, so this should be good to go. We hooked our hose back up here, and that's about it. It's really, really simple. You really don't even have to do an oil change on it. We recommend doing one anyway, in case there's any, anything that got down in there. You might as well get it out, drain it out, and do an oil change. We're going to do a real quick tune-up on this now, since we got the wires kind of halfway off. And since they're 15 or 16 years old, we're just going to go ahead and replace them. So if you follow a couple little steps or think it out in advance, you can do it so you don't mix the wires up and cross a wire. Even though it's a 4-cylinder, it's real easy, but you'd be surprised how many times they get crossed, the wires get crossed and you get a misfire. So we're going to pull the plugs out and replace those real quick. Then I'm going to show you a quick way to match the cap and the rotor, the cap and the wires before you change them. So we're going to go ahead and pop these plugs out.